There are moments in history when a challenge for one country becomes an opportunity for another. For decades, Canada built much of its economic strategy around one assumption: the United States would remain its most reliable partner. Trade, investment, manufacturing, supply chains, and even long-term planning all reflected that belief. But in recent years, changing trade policies, tariffs, and growing political uncertainty forced Canadian leaders to rethink that approach. Instead of depending so heavily on a single market, Canada has begun looking outward, searching for new partners across different regions of the world. During a visit to Saudi Arabia, Prime Minister Mark Carney outlined a vision centered on economic growth, investment, and diversification. He described Canada as aiming to become one of the fastest-growing economies in the G7 while attracting large-scale private investment over the coming years. Carney also highlighted plans to expand Canada's industrial capacity, strengthen key sectors, and increase exports beyond the American market. According to his remarks, the country is working toward doubling its non-U.S. exports while continuing to attract record levels of foreign investment. He argued that Canada must prepare for a future where resilience and flexibility matter as much as traditional alliances. Rather than focusing on short-term challenges, the government says it is building a long-term strategy designed to make Canada more competitive in a rapidly changing global economy. The message was clear: Canada's future growth will depend not only on its relationship with the United States, but also on stronger connections with partners around the world. That vision represents one of the biggest shifts in Canadian economic thinking in decades. A major focus of the visit was turning that long-term vision into real economic cooperation. Canada and Saudi Arabia announced plans to expand collaboration across several industries, including critical minerals, energy, infrastructure, artificial intelligence, education, and advanced technology. Instead of limiting discussions to diplomacy, both countries emphasized practical projects that could generate investment, create jobs, and encourage innovation. Canadian companies are expected to contribute expertise in engineering, clean technologies, mining, transportation, and digital solutions, while Saudi Arabia continues investing in large-scale development projects as part of its economic transformation. Officials also discussed expanding training programs, research partnerships, and opportunities for businesses from both countries to work together on future initiatives. Another important development involved investment. Canadian pension funds are preparing to explore opportunities in Saudi Arabia, while Saudi investment representatives are expected to visit Canada to examine projects in infrastructure, energy, and other strategic sectors. Both governments also expressed support for strengthening investment protections, a move intended to provide greater confidence for businesses operating across both markets. These announcements suggest that Canada's international strategy is becoming increasingly diversified. Rather than relying on a single economic relationship, Ottawa appears focused on building a wider network of partnerships across multiple regions. Supporters believe this approach could improve long-term stability, reduce economic risks, and create new opportunities for Canadian businesses in fast-growing global markets. As international competition continues to evolve, expanding trade relationships may become an increasingly important part of Canada's economic future. During the visit, Mark Carney also explained the broader reasoning behind Canada's growing international engagement. He noted that maintaining dialogue with different countries does not necessarily mean agreeing with every aspect of their policies. Instead, he argued that international cooperation should be guided by Canada's own economic interests, long-term security, and strategic priorities. Carney acknowledged that Canada has benefited enormously from its relationship with the United States, but he also suggested that recent global events have highlighted the risks of relying too heavily on any single partner. According to his remarks, diversification is no longer simply an economic objective. It has become an important part of Canada's national strategy for building resilience in an increasingly uncertain world. The government says this approach includes expanding trade, strengthening supply chains, attracting new sources of investment, and developing industries that can support Canada's long-term competitiveness. Sectors such as clean energy, critical minerals, advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence, aerospace, and emerging technologies are expected to play a central role in that vision. Carney also emphasized that countries with influence across different regions can become valuable partners as global economic and geopolitical conditions continue to change. By strengthening relationships beyond North America, Canada hopes to improve its access to new markets while reducing exposure to disruptions affecting any one economy. The overall message was that Canada's future prosperity will depend on building a broader network of international partnerships. Rather than replacing existing allies, the strategy focuses on expanding opportunities, increasing flexibility, and ensuring the country is better prepared for future economic challenges in a rapidly changing global landscape. The final message of the visit focused on Canada's long-term economic vision. Government officials argued that attracting international investment today requires more than political stability. Investors are increasingly looking for countries with clear strategies, strong institutions, skilled workers, reliable legal systems, and access to global markets. Canada believes it can offer all of these advantages while positioning itself as a gateway for international business. Carney highlighted Canada's expanding network of trade agreements, saying they strengthen the country's appeal for companies seeking access to multiple regions through a single investment destination. Combined with growing strengths in energy, critical minerals, advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and technology, the government hopes this strategy will encourage more global businesses to choose Canada for future projects. For decades, Canada's economy was closely tied to the United States, and that relationship remains one of the country's most important. However, recent years have encouraged Canadian leaders to pursue a broader international approach by expanding cooperation with partners across Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and other regions. The objective is not to replace existing partnerships, but to create a stronger and more balanced economic foundation. Whether this strategy delivers the expected results will become clearer over the coming years. Success will depend on investment, execution, global market conditions, and the ability to maintain strong relationships with a wide range of international partners. One thing, however, is becoming increasingly clear. Canada's economic strategy is evolving, and its role in the global economy may look very different in the decade ahead. If you enjoyed this analysis, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments.